is yours, we hope to keep our session to 45 minutes. We had an overwhelming number of folks register to join and acknowledge that we may run over time. Our hope is to wrap up no later than 8 p.m. tonight. Now that that's out of the way, let's get to the reason we are all here. The dynamic on campuses across the country has shifted. Parents and families who thought they were sending their students out to campus have suddenly found them choosing to stay home for a myriad of reasons, all largely rooted in the desire to keep those we love healthy and safe. That said, we realize the context of your student virtually learning from their childhood bedroom or a space other than their residence hall room tucked away on campus is anything but ideal and is fraught with challenges. This panel will focus on supporting your student and your family through this complicated moment. We hope to normalize the experience, share stories, inspiration, and strategies. After all, we know you are here tonight because you are deeply invested in your students' success, and so are we. Tonight, we will focus on supporting parents and family members with students virtually learning from home. But if you are joining us and your student is living on campus or in the College Park area, undoubtedly this conversation will still be relevant for you too. We do also want to acknowledge the importance of language, and that whether you are a parent, a family member, or a friend, we recognize that you are partners in this unusual context for student learning, and we thank you for being present tonight. Next, I'd like to introduce the Executive Director of College Park Scholars, Dr. Mary Lee Lindemann, for a brief welcome. Mary Lee, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Ben, and a hearty, warm welcome to all of our parents and family members who are here with us tonight. I am so glad to be with you this evening and to have an opportunity to share insights and information and maybe commiserate a little bit about this most remarkable semester. I want to thank Ben Parks, Leah Tobin, and Cindy Stevens for helping to make tonight happen. Also want to thank our wonderful students, our faculty members, and our campus partners for taking the time to be a part of this conversation. You know, in a normal school year, we don't have conversations with parents and families once classes have begun, right? There's a kind of handoff that takes place once students are moved into residence halls and classes are underway. But this obviously isn't a normal school year, so some of the boundaries feel a little bit blurry and some of the usual transitions haven't happened in the usual ways. So I think programs like this are probably helpful to all of us. I think that the most important thing I would like to say to you this evening is something I've been saying to students since the spring, and that is that Scholars is still Scholars. We are doing right now what we have been doing in College Park for more than 25 years. We're supporting first and second year students in their transition to college. We're helping them to succeed in the classroom and across the campus. We're connecting them with opportunities to grow personally and professionally, and we're cultivating their capacities as leaders and as citizens. Our environment now is different, and our challenges are admittedly considerable, but our mission is unchanged and our commitment to it is unshakable. In Scholars, we like to say that we learn better when we learn together. So if you ask us to operate in a virtual mode, our core challenge is going to be to figure out how to be remote together in a strong, meaningful way. So that means that this summer, we got a grant for nearly $40,000 to support our programs in reimagining the Scholars Colloquium for virtual delivery. The colloquium is the cornerstone of the Scholars curriculum. It's where our programs introduce their big questions and begin building community among the students. As our work on the grant unfolded over the summer, I was blown away by the care and the creativity that programs brought to redesigning this signature course. But care and creativity are words I use a lot when I talk about the faculty and staff of College Park Scholars. Part of our job is to give students a small, supportive home on a large, intimidating campus. Even in a remote environment, that's who we are and what we do. One of the most gratifying moments of the last 7 months for me was when I read the words one of our sophomores wrote in an evaluation at the end of the disrupted spring semester, when instructors had to pivot almost overnight to remote teaching. I always feel like Scholars has my back, the student wrote. That's who we are. That's what we do. And that's what we will continue to do for your students as we make our way through whatever this year has in store for us together. On that, you have my word. So thank you for being here tonight. And Ben, back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Lindemann. Now it's time to meet our panelists. Let's start with our outstanding College Park Scholar students. The order of introductions will be Alyssa Leppert, Skylar Herman, Kalia Burnett, and Marley Burke. Alyssa.
Hi, everyone. So my name's Alyssa, as he mentioned. I'm a senior government and politics and marketing double major here at the university. So I'm currently doing my online learning from my childhood bedroom in Baltimore County. I am involved in a variety of things on campus and also while online. So I recently took part in the Masters +1 program in Marketing Analytics, so taking courses for that. But I'm also a big part of the Women in Business Association and the Pi Sigma Alpha Honor Society. And I'm happy to talk with you all tonight.
Hi, as Ben mentioned before, I am Skylar. I am also a senior at the University of Maryland this year studying biology. I was in the Life Sciences Scholars Program, and I am currently learning and working from my home in Montgomery County, Maryland. But I'm still able to be involved a little bit on with things on campus, although in a virtual format, I TA or I'm a teaching assistant for an asynchronous lab on campus. So I hold office hours with students and I answer emails and things like that. But then also outside of a leadership role or a teaching role, I help tutor kids through a program called Caring. So I'm still able to kind of meet with kids even like through Zoom.
Hi everyone, my name is Kalia. I'm a sophomore mechanical engineering major, still an SGC student, which basically stands for Science and Global Change. I am at home, but I also travel to campus to partake in my in-person lab class. And as far as being involved with the University of Maryland goes, I'm the TORCH chairperson for the Black Engineering Society, and TORCH stands for Technical Outreach Community Help. I'm also a Scholars Ambassador, and I'm a pen mentor for SGC.
Hi, I'm Marley. I'm a junior government and politics student. I also have a minor in rhetoric, and I'm part of the +1 program where I'm getting my master's in public policy. I am involved as a Scholars Ambassador and with Terp's Vote, and I'm also involved with Greek Life here at Maryland.
Thank you, Marley. We are so very lucky to have our awesome students with us on the call tonight. Their insights and perspectives will be so invaluable as we think about what support looks like for parents and families right now. Next up, Dr. Ted Pickett, the Associate Director of the UMD Counseling Center. Dr. Pickett.
Hello, everyone. As I said, I'm Dr. Theodore or Ted Pickett Jr., Associate Director at the Counseling Center. I've been at the Counseling Center for about 14 years now. I think this will be my 15th year. My primary responsibilities are running the day-to-day functions of the counseling service, which is staffed by psychologists and therapists.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pickett. Next up, we have 3 of our Scholars Program Directors here. First up, Harold Burgess from our Arts Program, followed by Dr. Liz Mehring of Global Public Health, and Tim Knight from Environment, Technology, and Economy. Harold.
Thank you so much, Ben. My name is Harold Burgess. I am the director of the College Park Scholars Arts Program. I think I'm in my 12th year directing the program. I am a 2-time alumnus of the University of Maryland, earning both my Bachelor of Arts degree in theater and a Master of Fine Arts in theatrical design. I also currently am a practicing professional lighting designer as well. Beyond that, I'm just delighted to be here to share this evening and to hopefully answer some of your questions. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Happy to be here. I'm Dr. Liz Mehring. I am a faculty member in the Department of Family Science in the School of Public Health and the director of the Global Public Health Scholars Program. I also am the faculty advisor for a student organization called Public Health Without Borders. And I've been at the university for 13 years. I've been the director of GPH for 7 years, and it's the best job I've ever had. And I am currently working from home with my 2 boys, a junior in high school and a 6th grader, and teaching students. Happy to be here.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tim Knight, and I'm the director of the Environment, Technology, and Economy program. I have a bachelor's degree from Stanford University in environmental science and a master's in soil science from the university. I'm sorry, I'd get in a lot of trouble. From Oregon State University. University of Oregon is the other one. And like Liz, this is absolutely the favorite job that I have ever had. And my primary focus on campus is being the director of Environment, Technology, and Economy. I also have 2 children. My daughter is currently in her 2nd year of college. She's been in South Korea for several semesters now. She did not come home over the summer because she couldn't travel. So I also have a very remote student. And then my son is junior in high school and he's at home.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you to all of our panelists. As you can see, we have a great team here. So let's get to it. We did learn a great deal from your registration responses, but let's share our concerns and challenges with each other. So I believe I would like you to follow the directions on your screen to respond to this question. And very importantly, if you can keep this to 1 word. So we're going to put up a prompt for you. What is the biggest challenge you face with your student learning from home? And I don't know, Cindy, if we can see this is a poll everywhere feature. And I don't know if it's kind of tough to see. So we have this poll everywhere feature where you would text something or log on and be able to do it. We're going to work on that on the back end. A kind of way to normalize what we are seeing. We will work on that, but we were going to move forward. So I offered that question about what is the biggest challenge you all are experiencing as parents and families, but I think what we'll do actually is maybe start with our students. So students, our student panelists, what is the biggest challenge you're experiencing as you virtually learn from home this semester? And would any of you, I would like to hear from all 4 of you, but would any of you feel moved to start off?
I can. So I think for me and my learning experience, and by the way, I forgot to mention I was an international studies scholar, but in my household, I think the biggest issue is because both my parents work from home, my brother is also a college student with all online classes, is everybody's schedules are kind of conflicting. So somebody may be in class while somebody else is on a Zoom call, and that sometimes causes a lot of tension when people want things to be quiet. But the best solution for us to kind of work through last semester and this semester is kind of finding the quiet spots in your house or outside that you can kind of study and do your work or do your class. And then also trying to talk about your schedules. We have ours on the fridge, so that way you can see what people are doing. If something like this panel for me that is normally at this time, you put it out there so people know when to be quiet. But also scheduling time to see your family. I know everybody talks about Zoom fatigue. It's not the same seeing people through the screen than in person. So we always make sure we have like an hour each day where we just kind of talk about our days, and it's usually like over dinner. But yeah, scheduling's definitely tough.
Thank you, Alyssa. I'm going to get to Kalia in a moment, but I think we have fixed our slides. So what we're going to do, you'll note, is you can text C. Stevens, PhD, Dr. Stevens is helping us out tonight, to 37607. And if you have a 1-word response, and this is for our parents and family members out there, we're going to keep moving with our students. So Kalia, I thought I saw you wanted to weigh in about sort of what one of the biggest challenges you are facing with learning from home.
Yeah, so for me, it's kind of the isolation. Although it's a challenge, it is very manageable. So one thing I do miss is being able to walk to the library and then you see students studying the same thing as you, or students studying, and you kind of, it's easier to meet up with people. But since everything is virtually, a lot of my courses and stuff, like a lot of students have created group meets, and then they also, now a lot of people know how to actually host meetings. So usually we host study groups together, so then we study together. So the challenging part is the isolation, but We manage it by having Zoom meetings and communicating through our group me messages, but I do miss the in-person.
Thank you, Kalia. Skylar or Marley, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, sure, I can weigh in. So probably the biggest challenge for me has just been with different professors and all the different classes kind of putting their information out differently through each like Canvas and Elms page, and not really sometimes like missing assignments if a class is asynchronous, just like making sure that I am on top of scheduling things properly. And so what's really helped me is just being consistent with each week. So a lot of the classes right now, for me at least, are pretty consistent with the weeks with the assignments that we have to do. So I try to make sure that I am always in class. If not on a Zoom call, I am always watching a Panopto lecture or recording at the same time that it would be on my schedule, or at least at the same time every week. And then just kind of planning out, okay, so this is the day that I need to do this assignment. I know I'm always going to have, an assignment for my bio class due on Monday nights, so make sure I do it at this time. And so just trying to be consistent with all of those things helps me make sure that I get all of my assignments done.
Marley, do you want to offer anything?
Yeah, so I think the biggest challenge for me, kind of what everyone has said, is definitely a mix between the asynchronous learning and just staying on top of everything, and then the connections that you make in class. It's been really hard, so I think finding ways. What's helped me with the asynchronous part is I live by my planner. I write every part of my day down between my planner and my calendar and my phone. I have big Zooms like this in both, and I have all my assignments, all my readings done, because sometimes I forget that asynchronous still means that the class exists. So I have to make sure that I'm staying on top of that and checking things, physically checking things off in my planner. And then for the connections, reaching out to people in classes, making group me's, having study groups is really important, because so many of my classes are discussion based. So it's definitely been a challenge to have those discussions and make those connections.
Thank you, Marley. And I saw Kalia sort of do a nonverbal retweet to one of your comments there. So we always appreciate the nonverbal retweets. So I got to be patient with our technology, but we're grateful it is up and running. So I think it's helpful to normalize some of the reactions we're hearing across all of our participants, our students, and also for our families that you can see on your screen there. Many folks are experiencing similar challenges, which is part of what we want to acknowledge and discuss tonight. So as we mentioned, we had the opportunity to look at some of your responses to our registration survey, which helped us kind of narrow down, and we have 3 areas of focus that I think really, or themes, if you will, that really stuck out to us as we went through your responses. And they were in the realm of academic success strategies. So and I think if you look at the words on your screen, you'll note some of those things around pedagogy, asynchronous and synchronous. And in fact, I think that's going to be our first question here in a moment. Zoom fatigue and how virtual learning is actually going. Another theme that we certainly saw, which we'll get to tonight, is connection and engagement. Again, the word connection was a big one there on our screen in our word cloud. Many comments around students' ability to engage and connect with their peers and also with faculty. And then third, mental health and wellness is a huge part of where I think everyone's energy is, and we're grateful to have Dr. Pickett with us tonight. I do want to start with a question from our Q&A here that I want to pull up. And I'll put this to any of our faculty directors. Can you speak to why some courses are asynchronous, as this seems to lead to less student engagement and ability to ask questions and interact with other students in real time? So any of our directors, Mary Lee, want to weigh in on that question about asynchronous versus synchronous?
I can take a stab at just knowing from a colleague of mine. So the course I teach, the Families and Global Health course, is synchronous. So I do, students have things that they should work on outside of the class time, but then we do meet and have discussions. But I do know from a colleague of mine in the Department of Family Science that she teaches maternal and child health course. She is taking care of her two kids who have school during the day, and her husband is a school teacher. And so it just was impossible, and she doesn't have family in the area. So it really was not possible for her to be able to teach synchronously. And I think just like all of us are juggling the many things that have changed in our lives. That's a good example of why somebody may, really prefer to teach synchronously, but there was no way for her to do something other than teach asynchronously right now.
Thank you, Dr. Marion. Anybody else want to weigh in on that?
I can just add to that the fact that as faculty, other classes I teach are all are synchronous. I'm involved in 3 different courses, but I think to Liz's point about the what additional pressures there are on faculty and staff in terms of being able to do their work. Having kids at home, I have 2 kids myself. I have a 13-year-old and a 9-year-old. Those do create real challenges from a teaching standpoint. I'm fortunate that that in many ways my classes are in the evening, so generally speaking, my kids are doing their schoolwork during the day, and then I can still be able to teach at night. But it definitely is a challenge. So I can see where asynchronous courses may exist in some cases for that particular reason. Also, I saw that I think Sydney Stevens put this into the wrote this in the Q&A chat, but there's also an issue too with internet connectivity. Internet access can be challenging for people depending on where they're connecting from, and so having synchronous classes can be difficult for some students to be able to connect and be able to be in real time with all their peers. So asynchronous does provide those students who may have internet access issues an opportunity to still engage in the course content, but not have the pressure of trying to be in with their peers simultaneously.
Thank you.
I'll add to that. All my classes are synchronous, and we do a lot of small group discussion, which is getting to, I realize this isn't the right question, but getting to that question of connection and ways for students to connect with each other even though they're not in the same room. But I will say that I have had to be very understanding with students and excuse them from class because there was a family emergency. I tested positive for COVID and I need to sleep. I mean, I have had all of those things, and it's only been, what is it, 3 weeks now? So I think the challenge, I think that there is a value to synchronous classes, but I think there's also a challenge in that students are going to miss things sometimes, and it is much harder to make up a discussion than it is to watch a lecture. So there's values absolutely to both, and we just have to be really, really flexible with students. And it's, I mean, that's one of the things that I've been struggling with and working really hard to do.
Yeah, just to add to what Tim just said, which reminded me, and even in our synchronous classes, we have asynchronous content built in just for the reason that Tim outlined, that students have an issue that they can't get to class or connect or whatever, what have you. Again, we try to be as open-minded and as flexible as possible to work with those students. So we've created a system in which if they can't come to class, we always have a recording of whatever was shared in class that particular session. And there's a way for them to complete an assignment so they can still be caught up with everyone else. So we try to kind of model that so that students understand that, hey, we're here to support you and figure out ways to work with you. We understand that you're going through challenges and that's going to happen. So we do the best we can to manage that with them.
So thank you to all of our directors for weighing in. I do have another question here. Before I would want to open it up maybe to one of our students. Do you want to respond to sort of the asynchronous versus synchronous and sort of how that's working in your experience? Skylar? Oh, I thought I saw Skylar take her mic off, but.
Can you guys hear me?
Now I can hear you, Skylar. Go ahead. I'm not able to hear you, Skylar, so we're going to come back to you. Alyssa, do you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, so I actually have mostly synchronous classes, but I do have one primarily asynchronous class. And just like a lot of these professors voice, part of the reason for that is because of students oftentimes can't attend, either because they're working or because they have connectivity issues or time commitment issues with family or whatever they're doing in their household. And what I found strategy-wise for handling asynchronous courses is honestly be very open with your professor about the challenges you're having. I know myself with that class, he offers a help session every Wednesday where students can come together to work on our assignment for that week in small groups, and he's there to answer any questions. office hours and is always open through email. So for any students that are suffering or feel like they're struggling with an asynchronous class, I really think the first thing you should do is be clear with your professor exactly what your issue is, whether you're having trouble connecting with other students or whether you're struggling with the material. A lot of the times the professors are really opening to hearing your feedback and your concerns because at the end of the day, they really do want to help you, at least in my experience. So that's what I would recommend.
Thank you, Alyssa. So I am mindful of time. I can't believe it's already 7:30, just kind of want to keep us apace. So we've hit on academic success and strategies, and we can certainly go back to that again. We are having a robust typing conversations, lots of furious fingers moving in our Q&A. So continue to please submit your questions there. I also saw that one of our parent and family members actually submitted a question directly to Kalia. So please feel free to direct them to individuals if you have questions. Including Dr. Pickett from the Counseling Center. We will bring him in here a little bit on mental health. So we're going to move to connection and engagement. And again, as one of the larger themes that we noted in the questions that came from parent and family members leading into this was, and we saw this on that word cloud, is connection and how am I making engagement? And really two themes within that. So how am I making connections with my peers and how am I making connections with my faculty members. So I think I want to start with peers. And so we just heard, and would invite Kalia or Skylar or Marley in around how are you able to connect with your peers right now? I mean, you've already touched on this a little bit, but are there strategies or ways that you've been able to go about making sure you're making connections with people that are in your classes?
I can take it. And I think the key is to just not be afraid to reach out. Sometimes it is a very daunting thing to just message someone or text someone privately, but you're in class and a lot of these are set up for people when you need help. You can have study groups, you can ask questions, and your professor and TA might not be in a timely answer, and there could be somebody else who knows the answer. So I think just having the ability to just reach out is key for making those connections and kind of keeping that engagement.
Thank you, Marley. Kalia, do you want to weigh in at all on kind of making connections with peers right now? Or
Yes, so I could agree with her. One of the things I had to adjust to was actually reaching out because that is something that I rarely do. So I had to come up out of my shell and make sure that I reached out to people and that I connected with them. And most of my classes, as I said before, we typically text through GroupMe. And a lot of times we meet over Zoom. And so that's when we talk and we laugh and we study. And then I know for some of my discussions, you have a live Zoom session. And so that's how you also connect with the people while you're sitting there working on your group work or working on whatever assignment you're working on. But definitely I had to come up out of my shell and make sure that I connect with people, initiate the conversations. And that's how I started building connections this semester through the virtual environment.
You know, and I would be remiss, Kalia, because you made the comment about shell. You know, we are the Terps, so we are all about coming out of our shells, aren't we? Okay, so we have a couple of questions. I think this was already answered in the Q&A, but I would also offer this to our students. How can students benefit from joining different clubs? And I think even more significantly, maybe on the minds of parents and families, is that actually available remotely too? And how is that going? So any students want to weigh in on that? Like, how are clubs going in a remote setting?
So I can actually answer that a little bit. So earlier today at like 4 o'clock, I actually was doing a tutoring session through a program that I run. And so we've been able to communicate with the program through GroupMe's, and I know you can get attached to organizations on like OrgSync, I think, and there are some other ways to do that. But usually we communicate through GroupMe's, and then I know for like my tutoring program, they pair us with students that are at a local school in the College Park area. And we've been able to just kind of meet, like we'll go into breakout rooms during these Zoom sessions, and we'll have times when we're all together and we're with our peers, but then we are also with the students themselves and we're helping them with homework, and we can use like the whiteboard function on Zoom and we can still teach them and show them things like that.
That's awesome, Skylar. We're grateful, and it's exemplary of what a lot of our scholar students do. They see opportunities. Alyssa.
Something else I want to add too, a lot of the majors and a lot of the different schools within College Park, they send out weekly emails. And a lot of times in those emails is where you can find information about club meetings, clubs that are having special events. So if you don't know where to start and you're struggling, you don't know how to use OrgSync, or you're not in a ton of group me's, don't worry. A lot of these clubs are still recruiting. Several of the clubs I'm in, they're only on their first or second meeting. There's still time to find these clubs, join them, connect with these students. And I've been a part of some of these online meetings, and really they are excited to talk to people and bring in special guests. So don't worry if you're not in any yet, there's still time. And like I said, check those emails that go out.
I knew I was going to do that the first time. Okay. Someone, a parent or a parent or family member just responded to that conversation and said, someone asked about clubs, but that was answered by talking about Zooms. How do you actually go about finding clubs? I think we have a lot of first year parents and families on. So how would you go about finding clubs?
I definitely think those emails, and I know I'm a public leadership scholar, and we receive a newsletter, and there's a Scholars Weekly newsletter, I'm pretty sure. And those always have information about internship opportunities, volunteer opportunities, club opportunities. Definitely checking your email is key, especially in this day and age.
I'm going to turn it to my colleague, Jess Koenig.
Hi. So another thing that I would suggest, and I imagine a number of our students were involved in this, on our scholars' social media, especially our scholars' Instagram, there was a virtual involvement fair to connect students to some of the opportunities for scholars specifically, but in general, I would say, as a number of our students have said, a lot of these programs have social media, have different ways you can connect to them, whether through Facebook, Twitter. Instagram is probably the most popular. And I see Marley enthusiastically agreeing with me. So I would also suggest, whether you have an Instagram or your students do, having them look on there and see if some of these organizations are holding interest meetings and things like that.
Thank you, Jess. Tim, I think you want to weigh in on this one too.
Yeah, in terms of finding the organizations in the first place, even before you go onto Instagram and try to find the pages of things that you're interested in, there was an event called the First Look Fair, which is usually held in person, but was held online this year. And I had some students who couldn't attend even the times that were available. And they were able to go to the website on the student organization page at the University of Maryland at the Stamp Student Union and get most of the information and contact information and places to reach out to. So if you're struggling with the part of even finding what's available, that is absolutely out there on the student organization pages, because I know that a number of my students were able to do it.
Thank you, Tim. I want to ask about, so kind of in the realm of connections, but there were a number of questions in the chat. Maybe this is for faculty or even Mary Lee. Will there be able to do any small group activities in person this fall? There's been a lot of talk about in-person stuff, but how is this going to happen? What is the philosophy of scholars or the campus about this?
I'm happy to try to speak to that first, and then programs can talk about whatever their particular plans might be. I mean, at the moment, obviously, we're still in kind of a wait and see mode with regard to the virus. Our goal is to protect everybody's health and safety so that those who are on campus can stay there for as long as possible. You know, right now things are going reasonably well. We hope that we'll be able to do some kind of small group in-person activities as the semester proceeds. I know there's been a lot of interest in the chat about service opportunities. Ben can talk about that some too. We have reserved spaces for our colloquia to be able to have some sort of small sort of study groups or working on group projects together, that sort of thing, in the Cambridge Community Center. Again, as circumstances permit. We're being very cautious, but because I'm a hopeful person, I'm still hoping that we will be able to sort of dip a toe into the water of some kind of limited in-person small group activity as we go forward.
Thank you, Mary Lee. Anybody else want to weigh in on that one? Okay. I do want to make sure we touch on, because one of the big themes from the pre-registration questions were around engaging with faculty, that students or that students don't have the opportunity because they're not on campus, or even if they are on campus, faculty maybe aren't having the regular office hours. So I would, particularly to our directors or Mary Lee, how are you able to be available to students even if you're not necessarily on campus?
Start. I am extremely aware of this issue. So I have 2 hours a week and it was 4 total between myself and the assistant director, when we have a published office hours, and I sit here with the Zoom on my computer. So I'm doing other things, but if a student comes into the Zoom session, I'm here and available to them during that time. I'm also always available to set up another time by email. With all of my first year students, and I think this is common to many scholars programs, I meet with every one of them one-on-one. I'm starting that process tomorrow. And so we'll have a conversation and get to know each other a little bit, which I think helps break the ice a little bit about that coming to the office hours in the first place. And the other thing that I've done, because I'm aware that students can't always come to those scheduled times, or may not be able to think that their issue is big enough, I start the Zoom call 10 minutes before class starts, and then I stay on up to half an hour after, or longer if I need to. I haven't yet needed to do that. So that students have an opportunity to ask me those little questions where they would hang around after class and catch me to ask me a question. So I've been working very, very hard to make myself as available as possible.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, I would share similar to Tim, having some virtual office hours that students can come to. I have both open office hours, and I also have office hours that students can sign up for by appointment if they so choose. And that's also true of my associate director and my graduate assistant. So all across the 3 of us, I think we have about 6 to 7 hours or so set aside, I think, for office hours each week, which students are welcome to come to any of us at any point. And I think also similar to Tim, we try to provide an opportunity for students to answer or ask us questions before or after class as time permits. We also utilize the way we structure our courses is we use breakout rooms for every single class that we meet. And we set aside 15 minutes of our class time purely for students to be in a small group with one of our program teaching assistants, who are all former students from the program, so they're juniors or seniors. And that is time for students just to be able to talk about whatever they want to talk about. As faculty, we actually don't come into those rooms at that time. We let the students and the TAs have that space, but it's designed for them to have a place where they can share anything they're thinking of, questions they may have, whatever it is. And of course, anything that needs to come back to us as faculty, we have that reporting mechanism in place. So we really try to reach out and provide students with an opportunity to connect with us in multiple different ways. Part of the challenge, of course, is relying on the students to take us up on that offer, that invitation to, yes, come into our office, come and talk to us, virtually speaking, but we're definitely there for them.
So next, I do, Mary Lee, you want to weigh in?
I just want to jump in and sort of underscore the last part of what Harold had to say there. I mean, it's obvious from what folks are saying that everybody has some kind of, virtual office hours. They are available to students. But parents and families, if you could help us out by encouraging your students to take advantage of I know they can be very shy. They can feel intimidated by the idea of going to a professor's office hour. But these are great opportunities. And actually, what I'm hearing is that virtual office hours, though being a kind of adaptation that people have embraced because of our current circumstances, might be something, they work really well. It's easier for, students don't have to schlep all the way across campus, for example, to meet with a faculty member. They're a little bit easier to arrange. So please encourage your students to take advantage of those opportunities.
Dr. Marin, did you want to weigh in briefly?
I will be very brief and just say, because I'll echo everything that everyone said, but I think one important thing for parents to hear is that we crave connection with students too. And so that's all the things that that Harold and Tim and Marilee just said, is we really want students to connect with us. And so I think one of the students said to be brave and reach out to your faculty if you have questions, but also know that that's something that we really, really want to get to know the students. So we hold those office hours, we hold those one-on-one meetings, we stay after class and start before, hoping that students will show up for those so that we can get to know them better.
I would amplify that to the nth degree, Dr. Mary, thank you. I want to pivot, and this is a question I think that addresses both connection and engagement and maybe moves us into this third theme around mental health and wellness. And Dr. Pickett, I'm going to turn to you. We had so many questions about parents and family members worried about their students being isolated. They're at home. How are they finding a schedule? So how would you, as a mental health professional, address concerns around isolation during this time and broader mental health issues?
So one of the things I've actually been talking with a lot about at presentations and with students, I'm not a religious person, but the Serenity Prayer has been something that I have deemed to be very important during this time. And for those who don't know, the Serenity Prayer goes, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. So I saw on the what people were putting as sort of their word, worry was part of that. And worry is an understandable thing that we may be challenged with, but worry toward things that we cannot change tends to create more worry and more worry about things we can't change. And so, I encourage folks to be able to work to delineate that, to make movement on the things that you can, and try to accept some of the things that we cannot. One of the things that I think all of us have struggled with, not just students, is that isolation. I've been struggling with it as well. I'm used to being able to see my staff of about 24 every day and laugh, every day. I don't have that right now. I'm kind of in the house. And so it is a very challenging thing, I think, for all of us to do. I think some of what the students said earlier is, using the opportunities to have these Zoom meetings. It is a safe way to develop some connections and start to interact with folks. We want to try to do that in a safe way as possible, but there are going to be parts of this that are going to be challenging. I can't say in this time that people shouldn't feel some isolation, some sadness, some anxiety. Like, those things are going to be there. And so what we're really hoping and working with students for is so that those things don't go into really deep levels and really start to impact significantly their academic and their social functioning. We do have some workshops that we offer to students weekly or daily, actually, around coping skills, academic success, relationships and communication, resilience and adaptability. And if you go to our website, counseling.umd.edu. Those workshops are listed there, and we also are October 5th through the 9th, we'll be doing also Mental Health Awareness Week. But the truth is, like, this is a challenging time for all of us, and I think an important time for us to be supporting one another. And self-care is a lot about also keeping things from dipping far. Like, they're going to go down, but we want to sort of manage the steepness in which it goes down. That self-care will help the slope go a little less steep and give you opportunity to come out a little bit easier.
Thank you, Dr. Pickett. I needed to hear that Serenity Prayer tonight, so thank you for offering that. We are at about 7:48, folks. So again, as I said, we're kind of in our last 10 minutes or so. So if you have last questions, I want to make sure you get those into the Q&A. We have a great team working earnestly to answer those, and certainly we can bring forward some things. I want to offer bring our students back in here, kind of playing off of anything that Dr. Pickett said around sort of thinking about how you're working through your mental health, maybe challenges you're facing, strategies you're doing. Some of you have already touched on this, but wanted to invite any of our students in around the idea of how you're thinking about your mental health right now. Marley?
Yeah, something I do is I just try to take a walk every day, get some fresh air, get my body moving. It's gotten a little cooler, which has been nice, but just getting outside and taking a walk, I think, is just
I think we lost Marley's audio, unfortunately. Sorry, Marley. Skylar, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I can add to what she was saying. That's probably the biggest thing that has helped me. I'm actually like currently enrolled in a fitness walking class to keep me like motivated to go and walk, because last semester when we went online, I found that like walking and being outside and getting fresh air and exercising was the thing that really helped me the most. Because just getting cooped up inside all day in front of a camera can be really difficult. So this walking class has kept me accountable. But even if you're not in a walking class, it's really important. I would go on walks with my family, or like if you have a dog, walk your dog. Just doing anything outside has been really helpful for me.
Thank you very much. Alyssa or Kalia, do you want to weigh in at all?
I can weigh in. I definitely think the walk thing is a big thing, but on top of that too, just remember it's hard for everybody in college, especially freshmen. You're always going to want to do more. There's always more that you're going to see that you can do. Work, you can create work with studying and everything. But remember to take time for yourself. It's hard to go out and see people socially, but interact with the other people you're living with, have conversations with them. Don't get too bogged down with work where you're not taking care of yourself. Make sure you're getting enough sleep and eating, because as much as we brush it off and joke about it, how it's not all that important, it really is. It really all adds up. And especially when you're already dealing with the stress from online learning and the lack of, and the feelings of isolation, you really do want to be taking care of yourself at this time. So just remember that on top of walking, get your sleep and eat well. And small things, but they really do add up.
And Kalia, I want to invite you in here if you want to offer anything.
Yeah, so for me, aside from the physical fitness, I tend to spend time with my family to relieve my stress and anxiety. That's the best way for me, because I'm a family person and I have a lot of younger siblings. So usually we do stuff together. So that's just adding to what Alyssa said, just spending time with my family, interacting with them, even though, you know, times has changed. But that's how I relieve my stress.
Family first. Thank you, Kalia. So I am mindful of time. So we have put up a takeaway from the webinar tonight. I think we're going to work on, there you go. But while our participants are responding to that, I do want to offer up kind of a general last question for all of our panelists, Dr. Pickett and everybody. And what is one piece of advice for success for parents and families who are navigating virtual learning in this complicated moment? And again, that's from students and our faculty and anybody to weigh in. And so as you're moved, anybody that want to weigh in, so what one piece of advice you have in this moment, maybe reiterating some of the things we've talked about, or an important piece of wisdom you want to offer as we wrap up tonight?
I mean, the piece I'm going to give as a person who's not doing the online learning, but, you know, as a therapist, but I think some of the theme, a bit of what I've also hearing the students say, and a lot of people say, is self-compassion. This is going to be a challenging time. You're going to be stressed. You're going to want to do things and not be able to do them, or feel like you're missing out on certain things or whatnot, or you're not doing this well enough. I think self-compassion is probably one of the biggest, and that self-compassion also hopefully allowing to lead you to ask for support.
Thank you, Dr. Pickett. Other panelists, what's one piece of advice you'd like to offer as we wrap up tonight?
I guess I can go. I think just for me, what's really worked with my family and my parents and my brother in particular is just to be patient. Everybody's stressed, no matter what your situation is. Everybody's got a completely different set of circumstances. So even if your student's really struggling with school and they're really stressed, or you're living with somebody and they're really stressed with work, just remember that we're gonna get through it. And the best thing you can do is talk to somebody that you trust, whether it's a mental health professional, a family member, a friend, a classmate, and just remember that we're gonna get through it and just work together.
Thank you, Alyssa.
I'll kind of echo what Alyssa said, in that I think reaching out and talking. A number of the questions that I have seen in the chat, the answer, as far as I can tell, is really reach out to the director, reach out to the person who is doing this. I have had students reach out to me and say, I feel disconnected. I don't know who to talk to. And I have been able to get them in touch with peer mentors, with other students. So a lot of this stuff, I think, could be really helped by going to the office hours like we were talking about. And I put it in the chat. I think I broadcasted it to everybody that I am available not only to my students, but to their parents as well. If you want to email me, if you want to set up a Zoom session, I am absolutely willing to do that. And I hope that other directors would do the same. And I think a lot of concerns could be allayed by reaching out and asking.
Thank you, Tim.
I just would add from kind of the, I guess, on the parent side of things, is I think it's really important to certainly encourage them to contact their professors, their directors, for assistance and help. I think, as you've heard from everyone, I think that's a pretty common sentiment. The other thing I would say is remember too that they are also college students. They are trying to figure out this experience, as many of them are, some of them of course for the very first time. So it's important, even if they're at home, to make sure that they have that space to kind of be a college student as best as they can in that just different reality. And what can you do as a parent to help support that? I'm not exactly sure I don't have an answer for that specifically, but I think it is important that you recognize that they will also need some space to kind of work through things. And it's okay for them to have some challenges to work through, but to be encouraging as best you can, support them, make sure they're eating regularly. That's really, really important, certainly. But just remember that they also need that space to kind of be at college, so to speak, whatever that might look like from home.
Thank you, Harold.
Again, echoing everyone's sentiments, I will say, like, finding, I will speak for my own experience with just seeing these little gems of the joy of students being at home, like their cat walking across the keyboard. And, and then the whole class, while I try to discourage them using the chat for things unrelated to the conversation, I had to allow the joy about the cat walking across the keyboard. And I think that that's something that is just, there are these little gems of this time where, people are all in their socks and their cats are walking across the keyboard, and we're able to have, just some humor about the situation. So humor and joy.
Thank you, Dr. Mary. Any of our other panelists want to weigh in? Tim,
I would just want to briefly add, one of the things that I think is super important for us as faculty to do is to be understanding, like I said, that students have things going on at home, things going on in their lives. I have also heard from a number of my students that have had to return home, having come to campus last year and had to return home, that it is harder for them because they now have other responsibilities. They have chores, they have things that they have to do at home that they didn't have to do at school. So I would encourage families and everybody to be as understanding as possible in the other direction, that students have a lot of stuff going on, and maybe they didn't take out the trash on time, and that has to be okay, just like I forgive the fact that they turn in their assignment late.
Thank you, Tim. Any of our students, Mary Lee, want to weigh in? Any last nuggets of wisdom here in the last few minutes?
Oh, I feel like our students and faculty have done such a beautiful job of getting at what really matters. I guess I want to say, I think it's probably obvious from what you've already heard. We miss not having your students with us on campus. We wish they all were, and we're all acutely aware that these are students who in many cases didn't get to go through their high school graduations. And, we're aware that all of those, so many of these developmental markers and milestones that, they feel like haven't really happened. And I hope you see, feel, and know how hard we are working to create meaningful opportunities for them to have a real college experience, even under these bizarre circumstances. And please know how much we hope that it all gets more normal soon. But who knows what normal is going to look like really after all of this is quote unquote over. But we are doing the very, very best that we can because we all care a lot.
Thank you, Emma. Any other, or Mary Lee, any other comments from any of our participants, or our panelists rather? All right, so we're at 7:59. Thank you all so much for being with us tonight. I'd love to give a round of applause for our awesome panelists, Dr. Pickett, our directors, our amazing students for coming out tonight. Oh, we have some raised hands. Appreciate it, Doreen. Thank you. So I did note there as I was looking at the Q&A, some questions about communications. I want to lift up the idea that we're all partners in all of our student success. So we are grateful for your engagement tonight, and we look forward to continuing that communication. A number of you asked about some of the specifics in the Q&A. We are also going to put a recording of this on the Parent and Family Affairs YouTube page. So we will be sending a follow-up email with these resources, which you can certainly share with other family members and other families you may be aware of. We are at 8 o'clock though. We are grateful for your time, and again, grateful to my colleagues and our amazing students. We wish you all the best and stay safe and be well.